Yeah, welcome here to Seismic Radio and to another talk on the book of Proverbs. Last time we stopped in the in chapter 10. If I remember right, it was verse 7. It's a long chapter, and it's now Solomon talking directly. Solomon, renowned to be one of the wisest kings in the ancient world, and surely wisdom hasn't got a sell-by date or best before date on it. But it's truly the case today, and I wish that some of our leaders today would share in the wisdom of Solomon. Okay, let's move on with chapter 10, verse 8. And I'm just going to highlight this. Can I highlight this? Yeah, I can. The wise in heart will receive commandments, but a bubbling fool shall fail. The wise in heart will receive commandments. They will receive instructions. They will receive guidelines. Basically, the wise in heart will receive. Yeah, that's very, very important. There are some key words in here. I believe that that a wise man will be able to acknowledge error. A fool will not. A fool will still stick to the error of his ways and go and suffer for it. A wise man or a wise woman will acknowledge when things have gone wrong and when their judgment has not been right. And I think this is very important as well, to appreciate correction, to invite correction, to be open to listen to everything, and not to be blindsided in any way whatsoever. What you find with a fool is, and it's interesting as well, let's look at some of the words which are here. They are bubbling. A bubbling fool shall fail. A bubbling fool is a fool that talks a lot. And they just talk. And they don't receive instruction. They don't receive commandments. They don't receive at all. All they do is they just give, but they don't know what they're giving. And very often it is badly wrong. Let me just expand a little bit on this. What I find, for example, in the world of academia, there are some big errors. One of my biggest bugbears in the world of academia is the theory of evolution. When you look at just very simple arguments and you ask very simple question, the theory of evolution falls over pretty quickly. There are two types of evolution, and there's adaptation, which animals, creatures, nature tries to adapt to changing environments, and so there are changes as it goes on. You can see this when you breed dogs or cats or whatever, that some of them look quite different, that look different from one another. You look at different types of animals in colder and warmer climates, and you can see that there are differences as well. That's just adaptation. That's just part of the survival code God has given us in our genes to make it in a world that is changing all the time, and that is not necessarily changing for the better. A couple of questions you ask yourself. Has there ever been any evidence from one part of species to migrate to another part of species? Any empirical evidence, so evidence which you can reproduce, and people might say, oh no, this takes millions of generations and it can't be done. Okay, has there been any evidence in the geological record? I mean, the planet, if evolution is true, the planet should be strewn with creatures that are in between us, and when we look very closely, they aren't. It's just not the case. Some of the stuff that was presented in the 19th century have all been determined to be fakes, have found out to be fakes, and yet they're still in use today, and you still find them in school books. But that's interesting. When you can then go into the world of academia, and you go, into the world of those people who propose I can't even call it science, but the speculative theory of evolution. All they do is they just multiply words. They multiply words that there are certain studies which have been made, and you've got like thousands and upon thousands of words trying to make a certain point. And And one thing is, truth is not going to be established by the number of words you use to try to confirm it, but truth is truth. Reality is reality. You cannot change it how many words you will try to use. I mean, we see it today with the whole discussion on gender being a social construct and so on. So a lot of people come up with lots of ideas, lots of theory, lots of studies. Lots of the studies are misrepresented. I was going into some of the studies recently where some of the ideas, the ideology has come from. The study was presented as a great success. There were basically two twins. They got circumcised. One twin, it went really wrong, the circumcision, and it ended up in a genital mutilation. And they decided to raise one of the boys. There were two identical twins. One of the twins as a boy, and the other one as a girl. And it didn't work. I mean, the so-called girl found later out that he was really a boy, and always never fitted into anywhere. Really, really suffered, and later on in teenage years committed suicide because couldn't cope with what was imposed on him. And yet, this study or this case was presented as a great success, and was used as a basis for gender just being a social construct. And you could, if you change the social construct, you can change the gender. And yet it's all based, whatever we believe today, it goes back to this study, which happened sometime in the 60s, and it goes back to that point, and yet it is based on a complete and utter lie, because the academic has just been a bubbling fool who has been presenting this case. He just multiplied a word, didn't stick to reality, didn't sit to objective and objective observation of this case to see what is really going on and what's really happening. So anyway, bubbling fools, they multiply words. Wise people will receive correction, they will receive commandments, they will receive guidelines. I could talk about politics, I could talk about some of the stuff that's going on in Germany at the moment. There's a bunch of politicians who are running the nation into the ground, literally into the ground. Because they're just based around an ideology. This is all the CO2 stuff and man-made climate change and so on. And in doing so, literally, they're running the nation into the ground. And it's quite interesting to see. It's interesting to see those politicians as well. When these politicians start to verbalize of what they are trying to do, and all it comes down to is just a multiplication of words. There's very, very little factual evidence on the basis of their decisions or to base their decisions upon, but a lot of it is just like lots of words. Okay, and you might accuse me that I'm doing a lot of words here as well, and that's fair. Okay, you can make this argument, and I receive it as well. And maybe I should shorten some of the statements here and be a bit more concise. Okay, that's fair enough. But the main thing here, which I want to work out and which I want you to understand, is if you aim to be wise, which we all should, doesn't matter who we are. Number one is we should admit to error if error has taken place. Yeah, that's the sign of a great man, of a great woman, to be able to humble yourself and to say, I got it wrong. And then the next thing is we should be able to receive commandments as well. We should be able to receive instruction to change our ways for a better way. Not obviously blind instructions. If somebody tells you to do something stupid or to do something which is not wise, obviously you're not going to do it. You're not going to go for it. But you listen to it. And that's very, very important. We need to listen even to people we perceive to be our enemies, our intellectual enemies, our spiritual enemies. We need to listen, find out what's going on, and then receive instruction, and be ready to be prepared to receive instruction. It's very hard. It goes against the grain, I tell you that. It really goes against the grain. If you're anything like me, I'm a born rebel. It's hard. It's really, really hard, but it's necessary, and we need to open up. If somebody says you've done this wrong, look at this again, we should stop, think, look at it again. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, next one is, I'm just going to highlight the verse. He who walks uprightly walks surely, but he who twists his ways shall be known. Okay, so we've got the walk of integrity and of uprightness, to do the right thing at the right time. It's not always easy. It sometimes goes against the grain, like I said before, because it's easier to just weasel your way around issues instead of confronting them. And it's hard. It's really, really difficult. But if you are not straight, but you are devious, you'll be known for it, and you'll suffer for it as well. I'm convinced of that. And this is, not just in a Christian context. I mean, God knows everything about you anyway, so it is no point to be devious before God, because He knows the inside out. You can just be straight up, and that's the best way to be with God, to be straight up, to say, got it wrong, please forgive me, help me to get out of this bad way, this bad path I'm on. That's what you need to do with God, because He knows you inside out. He knows you. There's no excuse you can make that will stick. Might stick with people, not with God. He who twists his ways shall be known. Yeah. So again, no point in twisting your ways before God, because He knows you anyway. But it does sometimes work with people, because people don't see through you, and people don't see the twistiness of your way, the deviousness of your ways. So again, the encouragement here is don't do it. Don't be devious. Be straight up. Be straight up with people. Don't talk behind people's backs. If you talk behind people's backs, talk to, right to their face and tell them what you think. Then it's okay to talk to other people the same thing, but don't be nice to their face and then, talk badly behind their back or something. Yeah. Better is to be nice to them and be nice behind their back as well. Elevate people rather than destroy them. And if people have got issues, help them with their issues. Okay, he who winks, and again we're coming about all the deviousness here. He who winks the eye and causes sorrow, but a babbling fool shall fall. He who winks the eye causes sorrow. Again, we've got this deviousness. So secret messages, talking behind somebody's back. Just having little signs here and there. I find this sometimes very embarrassing. I think very often you get this husband and wife thing. So I find it fascinating how some women can talk with their eyes louder than with their voices sometimes, or people talk with the expression on their face, and they've got like secret messages across the table or whatever, like they want to go or they want to do this, that, or something else. I sometimes find it very embarrassing, because I'm thinking, I see this, everybody else can see this. What's the point? Why not say, oh, we need to go? But a babbling fool shall fall. Okay, again, we talk about the talky fool. People who talk a lot, who try to overtalk everything. These people will fall. Again, sort of not being open, being secretive, being, behind people's back and so on. It causes sorrow, and it's not good. Be straight up, be straightforward. It's sometimes difficult, sometimes maybe even seems to be impossible, but it's something we should aim for, and we should go, a direction we should walk towards, to be more transparent to people, as much as it is wise and appropriate, but also to be square and to be open with people. I wanted to say something, about the winking with the eye thing and facial expressions and stuff like that. A long time ago, I heard a study, and I don't know the exact figure, but that's 80% or something, but it said that the majority of communication between people is non-verbal. And obviously today you might say, yeah, of course, it's email and it's text messaging and it's Facebook and messengers and so on. And there might be something to it, but even when you stand, on the other side with a person, you open your mouth, you speak, but a lot of it is non-verbal. It might be the intonation of the tone of your voice, your facial expression, your physical demeanor, how you stand, the position of your hands, and so on. So there are a lot of things, the way you look at people, whether you look away at them or you look at them. So there are a lot of things which seem to suggest that a lot, I don't know the percentage, I don't remember this from the study, but there's a large percentage of communication which is non-verbal. People don't speak, and you can see this. And there's sometimes a problem, I don't know whether you ever noticed when you send a text message or an email, that some people get upset about nothing. I've had this in my career, that I was sending an email, completely neutral, and suddenly there was a girl in tears, and I wasn't. I'm the last person to attack anybody or to tell anybody off, but it was just an email which was phrased in a certain way, and it was picked up in completely the wrong context, completely the wrong way, and a girl felt offended, who was working for a different department by what I'd written. There was not the slightest evil intent in there. It was just, as far as I remember, an informative email, just saying what was happening and so on. But there was no, you have done wrong or anything like that. Nothing like that at all. Yeah. But yet, this just didn't come across. If instead I'd gone to my colleague and I'd just spoken to her and said, "Oh, by the way, this and this is going on," and just share the information verbally with my presence, she would have known by the tone of my voice and my physical demeanor that I wasn't angry or anything like that. Yeah. So it was just purely, information just to keep her in the loop. And this is the problem sometimes with emails as well, that you may have written an email or a text message and it's being picked up in a completely different spirit or mindset, and maybe it's down to the mindset of the recipient or the way they perceive you, which may be good or not, or threatening or non-threatening. I don't know, but there may be a lot of issues there. So it's important to bear this in mind. Don't be open in your communication, be open in your messages. Don't have like secret little signals here and there where you go behind people's backs. Just be open. It's sometimes the easiest way. Just be open. If you need to go and you're in a party, you need to go. It's not a problem. You don't need to wink or whatever. Or if you think somebody is stupid, I don't know. You don't need to. You need to accept people as they are. That's a difference in your lifestyle and on your thinking as well. Accept people as they are, and even if they are not as intelligent as what you are, or they make statements which you totally disagree with. I mean, first of all, be open, listen to them. Question the statement, maybe question the person why he thinks in this way, and lead him to, if you think it's a wrong understanding, lead him to a better understanding if at all possible. But don't talk behind their backs. Don't demean people behind their backs, through the winking of eyes. Don't have secret messages in a social context where you communicate with one person but not the others. And it just causes a lot of bad feelings, if it's picked up. And if it's not picked up, it's not a good way to go about anyway. So that is just basic wisdom. Just be nice, be good. If you are together in a group of people, you're not just with one person, but you're with a group of people, then embrace a group rather than embrace one person, or talk to the group, not just to one person, through secret coding and secret messages. The mouth of the righteous of a righteous one is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Okay, the mouth of the righteous is a well of life. Very true. A righteous person, a person who fears God, a person who loves God, somebody who is embracing wisdom is a well of life. It'll lead you to life. And what is life? Life is not just, your heart is ticking and your blood is circulating around your organs, and they are the signs of life. But life is more than that. Jesus says of himself that he is the way, the life, and the truth. What does it mean to be life? Life is more. Life is enjoying your existence, breathing and enjoying every breath of air you take, enjoying the freshness of water, enjoying the company and the presence of other people, being in a mode where you can rejoice. That is life, yeah. So again, just to give you the scenario, if somebody has got a brain injury, people might go into a coma. And even though the heart is beating and all the organs are supplied with oxygen and blood and everything else, the person is not pretty much alive, doesn't live a life, has got no, people say quality of life. What is quality of life is another question, but I'm just trying to make the point. And even Jesus said, it's very, very interesting. At one stage, there was a young man coming to Jesus and he says, "Look, Lord, I want to follow you, but first let me bury my father." And this could mean the father has just died and he needs to bury him. Or it could also mean, this is sort of Hebrew language and talk, that he needs to be around his father until he dies. So it could mean he's either old and And, he needs to be around to look after him. Or maybe his father is still around. So this young man might be in his 20s, his father in his 40s, is still fairly vibrant. But he needs to be around his father's business. And when he's dead and, all the inheritance and all the rest and that is cleared, then he can, pack up and follow Jesus. Okay, so there are all these meanings there. We don't know what the situation is for this young man. But Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you follow me." Let the dead bury their dead. So Jesus is talking about people who can do something. They can bury other people. And he calls them dead people. I mean, in modern talk, you might say, let the zombies, bury their dead. And so he calls living, breathing people who can do some stuff dead. And I think when I look around in my life and I look at people around me, a lot of them are dead. They are just living. I wouldn't even call it living, they're existing. They have no plan, no perspective. There's no deep joy in their lives. Some of them are really struggling. But they're just sort of, orbiting around a thing. It might be a football club. It might be family, which is good. It's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong with the football club either. But they're just orbiting around one little, center. They gravitate around one thing that is the center of their lives. And that's all. There's nothing there. There's no deep joy. There's no deep, this enjoying life, living the life. There's nothing like that there. Making the most of what God has given you. Nothing. And but yet the righteous one. If you hang out with righteous people, if you hang out with God-fearing people, they will lead you into a better way, and they will encourage you to walk into a better way. And when I say this, there's a big danger, because you might say, oh, he's talking about religious people. I'm not. Religious people are sometimes deader than the dead. There's not necessarily any life in there. And this is a big problem within Christianity as well, where you find people who are very much alive, but you also find, the dead, the walking dead as well. And many of them are very, very religious. They talk the talk, they speak Christianese, they do all the Christian things, but there's nothing there. They're just dead. And how can you enjoy life? And one thing we can enjoy life is we need to be rooted into our origin. We need to be rooted to where we come from, and that is God. Jesus describes it that he is like a vine and that we are rooted into him, but we need to be nourished from the vine, from the plant. The plant is rooted into the ground, pulls up water, but we need to be nourished. If we don't get nourished, then we will dry up and we'll be dead. And so it's important as well for us to go right back to the source of life. And this source of life is God himself. And I'm not talking about a power, a force. I'm not talking about some new age concept. I'm talking about the very person of God. Person of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And if you know God, you will connect with the Godhead, and you will have life abundantly. And Psalm 23, it says, "My cup runneth over," to use Old English. This is how much life you have. It's more than you can deal with. But the key is you need to be connected to God. You need to be connected to the source of life. Again, I need to say this at this point. How can you be connected to the source of life? First of all, you need to recognize that you are dead. That you are dead in your sins. What are sins? After 2024, I have to talk about what are sins. Sins are things which God doesn't like, which are not right before God. If I walk by you, and for no reason whatsoever, I slap you in the face, and then I carry on walking just because I felt like it, that's a sin. That's bad. It's not right. And you will probably totally agree, and you will say, yeah, I totally agree with that. That's not good. That's a big problem. And that's bad. That's sin. And you have to imagine that God is... Let me just turn my phone off. You have to imagine that God has made us and has given us this earth, and He has put laws and rules how we should live, how we should treat one another, how we should relate to God. He has given us these rules. If you break any of these rules, that is sin. That is sin in the sight of God. That is doing something wrong in the sight of God. Okay. Once I realize I'm not right before God, and even if it's one sin, and the sin, I'm just going to go through the commandments. Putting God first in your life, having no other gods in your life, first commandment. And I think that not a single person walking this planet, other than Jesus Christ himself, is innocent at the first commandment, not having any other gods. Putting God first in your life, loving him with all your heart, soul, and your mind. Not one. Okay. Then we've got lusting after things that are not ours, stealing, lying, giving false witness, coveting, being greedy. And I don't even need to go to murder, and when I talk about murder, the New Testament is quite clear where Jesus says that, even if you're angry with somebody else, and you wish in your head that this guy would be dead, that's murder. That's murder you've committed in your heart. You haven't done it with your hands or any weapons or something. You've done it in your heart, and that's enough. So when I look at the just a couple of commandments of the Ten Commandments, none of us can stand before God, and so we need to recognize this. We've got sin in our life, and this needs to be dealt with. How do we deal with this? So, from our perspective, it's called repentance. Repentance means simply you're trying to turn away from it. We are all weak. We are all not the mightiest people in the great scheme of things that we can, control our flesh. They tried it in medieval times where monks tried to shut themselves away into a little room and avoid any sensual temptation or anything like that. It didn't quite work, or it doesn't quite work. It's very difficult. You can probably reduce the level of sin because you're physically shut away and you force your activities into a very small, narrow path. But your heart is still rotten. And there's still stuff going on in your heart which cannot be seen on the outside, but which will ultimately condemn you before God, because God knows your heart. So first of all, it's the willingness to just steer away from this. And then the next one is that you put your faith in Jesus Christ, that you believe that he died on the cross for you as the ultimate sacrifice, and that his blood was shed for your sins, that through him taking the punishment you and I deserve upon himself, you can be made whole before God. You need to believe this. You need to do this. And the next one is that you accept the lordship of Christ over your life. It's easy to say, and I can say, I accept the lordship of whoever over my life. What does it mean? That means that you will allow God to have ultimate control. That you will say, God first, me second. Again, will we act like this? If you do, congratulations. If you manage to do it for a whole day, I will come to you and I will shake your hands and I will say, well done. It's probably not going to happen, because we are weak creatures. We are, we try to do our best. And I have to say, in my life, I've been a Christian for 40 years, and I've had periods where I realized I was pretty much a failure and I was miserable about this. And I had periods where I thought, hey, everything is going pretty well. And I think I'm there, I'm living a good, pious and holy life. And I tell you, when I was in those phases where I thought I was living a good and holy life, this is where it really hit me and where I really fell, where I really, suddenly fell into a situation where I did some terrible stuff, where I sinned, where I committed sin. And obviously, we need to go through life in strong relationship with God, connected to the well of life, and which is Jesus Christ, which is God himself. And once we are connected to the well of life, then we can have a righteousness that is beyond, from above, beyond this earth. And then we ourselves will become a well of life as well, and people will see this. I've seen it myself. I've met complete strangers, and I wonder to myself, is that a Christian? And then, you start talking a bit, and you start tapping on the, a little bit on the conversation to find out where they stand. And then, voila, they're Christians. And the same happened to me as well, that some people thought whether I was a so-called born-again Christian, and they They weren't Christians themselves, but they noticed that there was something else going on. And this is really where we should be, where we put God first in our life, where we try to walk with God on a daily basis, and where we put God in the center of our lives, not ourselves. Most people put themselves in the center of their lives. Some people put their family, their spouses, their children in the center of their lives, and orbit around them. Some have a hobby or work. We need to put God in the center of our lives. And I have to tell you, it's not easy. It's hard. It's a lot easier to have a hobby and to just do everything around the hobby. It sometimes gets a bit boring. But it's very, very difficult because there's forces around you which try to pull you away from God. There's inside of you, the Bible calls it the flesh. The old nature is there, which tries to pull you away. And then there's a force in this world as well, where spiritual forces try to pull you away from God. So it's like a conscious effort to get up in the morning and to walk with God. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's a lot easier to have other centers in your life. May God have mercy on you and on me and on everybody else who's listening, that we will be able to be better in connecting with the Almighty and in being in being plugged in, to use this term, to be plugged in, and to be become a well of life ourselves, because we are tapping into the big, the eternal, the divine well of life. Okay, next part of the verse. But violence covers the mouth of the wicked. I find it so fascinating in politics as well. You've got like all sorts of parties. In Germany, there's some stuff going on where there's the left wing and the right wing party. The left wing party, they were in the past, they were all sort of, be good, be nice, flower power and no violence, be a pacifist, and we all need to, hold hands and sing and sing a song or something. That was the party, the Green Party, in Germany. And now there's another party that has come up, and from what I can see, they're not right wing. But I find it fascinating to look at what's happening in the world. How these people, who who were all for holding hands and pick up the migrants in the sea and do this and do that and be really benevolent and nice on the outside, and they were presenting themselves as a nice party, as the good and nice party. And there's now the new kid on the block. And on some demonstrations, there are now, on some protest marches, there are now public calls to kill people who belong to this other party. And it's just, I'm flabbergasted when I see this. How can this be? And then they talk about this other party. They need to prohibit the party. They are not doing anything. They are not nasty. They are not calling for death. They're just calling for laws to be kept, for the constitution to be kept. They're pointing the finger on constitutional abuses that is taking place by the ruling parties, and then they are painted as some sort of fascists which need to be murdered and killed, and they publicly call for it as well. And it's really, I'm not sure it's everybody, but it's from this spectrum of this party, and it's really sometimes shocking when you see how people change and how suddenly, nice people call for violence, and violence covers their mouth. Violence covers their mouth. They're calling for the death of people. There's a danger as well. At the moment, we've got a big war going on in Europe, and all Russians are put into one pot and Ukrainians into another pot, and then they are both calling on the death of the others. And again, very often, violence covers the mouth of the wicked. It's very easy to verbally murder people. And to call for the death of people. What we have to bear in mind whenever we talk like this, whenever you commit violence, you need to have a differential look. You need to see what's really going on. There are a lot of wicked people out there, and there are a lot of wicked people who one might think are beyond repair. You can't help them anymore. All you can do is just get rid of them or whatever. But again, we need to look at it from God's perspective. We need to look at it God's perspective. So we can see those wicked people. We can make them out by the amount of violence. Sometimes they do, but there's still hope for them, and the hope is in Jesus Christ. There's hope in repentance for them, and even wicked people can turn around and they can become righteous if they choose to do so, if they are willing to accept the call of God upon their lives. But anyway, stay away from violence, calling the death upon the death of people, and cursing your enemies and stuff like that. The Bible is quite clear. We should bless our enemies. We should seek those who persecute us. Pray for those who persecute us. Okay. Hate stirs up fights, but love covers all sins. Yeah. Right, we are back into the tribal politics, and let me just use this term, the tribe. Everybody tries to belong to a tribe. Yeah? So we've got gang violence. Very often it's just tribal stuff. You want to belong to somebody. You want to belong to a group of people who look after you. You look after them. You can invest yourself in them, and you get some sort of identity. And at the lowest level, it's just the groups in the kindergarten who are opposing one another. Or in school where you've got the people at the top table and the geeks on the other table, and the sporty people on a different table, and they hang out. You've got like different tribes, and then very often there's hatred. You look at the others and you think, oh, they are different than us. Yeah. And that goes all the way up to national levels. Yeah. And in the worst case scenario, you can end up in a nasty war where people are dying on a grand scale. Now, let's look at love. Love covers all sins. Even if people hate you, love covers it. Love will allow you to go the lower way. It'll help you to feed your enemy when he is hungry. And you will hear burning coals in his lap. That's what Proverbs later on, we're going to go through the scriptures as well. You will look after those who are against you. And you can look after those because love covers all sins. Love covers sins against you. If somebody's done something against you, love will cover it. I just need to think about a lot of parents, their love is deep, naturally, it's just given. I look at a lot of mothers who love unconditionally, even though their children have done a lot of bad things to them, been nasty to them and so on, but there's always this underpinning love, which just overlooks all these sins and things just sort themselves out. Sometimes between friends as well, true love covers sins. People offend one another, but you can overlook an offense if you love a person. If you hate a person, you will not overlook an offense, but you will look for revenge. Yeah. So love is important. Now, what is love? How can I get it? Love is number one, is a decision. You need to decide to love somebody. Yeah. And I just want to get this concept across. Feeling follows thought. You cannot control your emotions. Love can be an emotion, but it's also a mindset. Yeah. If you decide, I love these people, and I want to do good to these people, I like these people, and that's your mental thought. Yeah, your emotions will follow. If you are guided by your emotions, people talk today about emotional intelligence and all this stuff. But if you are guided by your emotions, you'll be all over the place. You will love them, you will hate them, you will love them again, hate them again, and this may be 4 or 5 times on the same day. But if you've got a mindset that you are a loving person and that you have decided to like people, then your emotions will follow, and it'll put your emotions in trucks. So it's one thing. Okay, so this is a little bit of self-manipulation, how you can stifle hatred in your soul, and you can enhance forgiveness and love in your life, where you can overlook offenses, where you will just choose to be good and to love people. But there's also a divine element as well, and this is in Corinthians we find that love is a gift, and it's a gift of God. And very often, if you are loved yourselves, it's a lot easier to love others. So if you are in love with a woman, or if you're a woman, you're in love with a man, first of all, they can do to you what they want. You can forgive and forget it all, and it's very easy to forgive and forget. Later on, when this emotional high life disappears, it's a lot difficult. But again, once you know the other person and you're committed to this person, you can overlook offenses. You can overlook when things go a bit wrong and things are done maybe not in a loving manner, in a loving way. And you can overlook this. Yeah. Okay, so the next point I want to come to is there's divine love, and it's a gift which is poured out into your heart, and it'll enable you to love those you would normally hate. I remember when I first became a Christian, I was a bit of a rebel, and I lived a rebellious life, and at school, I was 16 at the time, so at school, some of the teachers had me on their blacklist, and I was just getting stick all the time from them. And I hated them. And I made it clear that I hated them, and I would display my hatred towards them. It's not wise, and it wasn't wise at all, because in the end, they've got the longer lever, and I suffer for it, and I did suffer for it with my grades. But in the end, it was quite interesting as well when I became a Christian that God sort of boosted up my grades. And some teachers were still giving me low grades because they just didn't like me. They hated me, and there was no reason for them to carry on with those grades. But it was just sort of the attitude towards me, and they had the control, and there's nothing I could do about it. But I needed a certain level of grades to move on to an academic school, which I didn't think I would ever be able to go to. But suddenly I got these grades, and it was some bizarre thing that one subject, one grade below from about 20 odd subjects. And I would have not been able to go to this academic school, to the next grade up. And I'm sure that they had to give me this this remark on my final from the school I was on my final certificate. They had to give me this grade to say that I'm entitled to attend this higher level school. And I'm sure that a lot of teachers in the conference were very much surprised that I was being awarded this mark. Yeah. But again, the point I'm trying to make is that when I was there and I became a Christian, and I really hated some of my teachers, this hatred suddenly turned into love, that I actually liked them, and I could see their point of view, and I could see where they were coming from, and my whole understanding of what was going on in this little insignificant life of mine changed. Yeah, so I could have some sympathy for these guys, and the hatred just washed away. And that is, from what I can see today, that was sort of a divine intervention into my life. I heard later on, a few years later, the church I was in, there was another teacher connected to the church, or sort of over, they knew people I knew, and so on. And they said, or one teacher said, that they noticed that there was a complete change in my demeanor after I became a Christian. And they didn't know that I'd become a Christian. They just noticed that something was changing. And then, my friends told them, yeah, this is what happened. He came to us and to our church and so on. And it was quite interesting to see as well that from the outside it was visible as well what was happening on the inside. And that is really something where you need to get to. And this is a walk with God, where walking with God will enable you to love the unlovables, to have sympathy for those, which have been written off, to love those who hate you. And that goes against the grain, and it's not normal. Normal is people hate you, you hate them back. People who do you harm, you take revenge. That's normal. But to leave revenge to God, and to love them, and to call out to them, to come over to your side where life is so much better. Yeah, that is a different thing, and that is something which comes from God. Right, I'm not sure how much time I've got. I don't want to make this too long. This is a very deep chapter here. There's a lot of wisdom sort of hidden away in this, and I want you to, taste the goodness of the Word of God, the Word of God coming through the mouth of Solomon, King Solomon. And the lips of him who has understanding, so that's the next verse, let me just highlight this. And the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him who is without understanding. Okay, we are talking about discipline and wisdom. So somebody has understanding, wisdom goes very close, hand in hand with understanding. There are different things as well. You can have all the understanding in the world, but you can still be a fool. And there are a lot of people I could see. They are very intelligent, very highly intelligent people with a very high degree of understanding, but they're still fools because they don't use their understanding wisely. Yeah? But they ignore whatever they understand, and they embark on a foolish path. So an evil person may not be necessarily stupid or without understanding, but an evil person can have great understanding as well, and it makes them very, very dangerous. But there's a good thing as well. If people have got understanding, sometimes wisdom is with them as well, and that is good. And it says here, but a rod is for the back of him who is without understanding. So if you refuse understanding, if you refuse to see what is going on, to try to get your head around it, there's a rod. What does a rod stand for? Is discipline. It's a bit like normal civil law. If you understand civil law and you understand why it's there for, it's okay. So, for example, if you go in your car and you decide you're in a residential area, there's a lot of parked cars and children running around, and you decide to speed down the road doing 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, because you've got a really powerful and mighty car and it's very easy for it to do it, and you think your brakes are really good. There's a rod waiting for you, and the rod might be that they take your driving license away, or that they take your car away for breaking the law. And yet, if you have understanding and you kind of understand, okay, this is a bit of a dangerous situation here. There are cars, and I can't see whether a kid's just jumping out the car. Should a kid jump out and I hit the kid with lower speed, it'll survive. If I hit it with a higher speed, it'll most likely be dead. So that's understanding, and understanding is in life all over. You can understand this, and you can still decide to go 60 miles an hour because you just feel like doing it, even though you have the understanding. And then really, if you ignore your understanding, then there will be discipline for you, and that's pretty much in all areas of life. So it's important, try to understand, try to open up your mind, try to see what is going on in the world around you. Okay, spiritual understanding, very important. Try to understand who God is. Try to understand what your role in this world and the light of God is. What is your calling? What has God called you to do? Try to understand what you can do and what you can't do with whatever you have, to do what you think God wants you to do. Very important. Okay, next one. Wise ones store up knowledge, but the mouth of foolish is near ruin. So knowledge is a good thing. Today we've got Google, Daniel, knowledge will increase. But the mouth of the foolish is near ruin. So fools talk a lot of rubbish. Again, we're going to go through Proverbs later. It says it's better to be quiet, not to talk at all, and people will think you are wise, even though you may be foolish. Again, it's a bit like, when you talk, try to make sure your speech is okay. You understand what you're talking about. If you don't understand what you're talking about, then try to find and gain the understanding. Right, next one. A rich man's wealth is a strong city, but the ruin of the poor is a poverty. Okay, so there's no moral indicator here. You may be poor, and your ruin is your poverty, and this is unfortunate. This is the case. A rich man's wealth is a strong city. Okay. I can't comment a lot about it. It's just a statement. So rich people or people who are wealthy, they have some protective zone. Yeah? If things go wrong, like you get ill, you get sick, you lose your work, you've got a bit of a buffer. If you are poor, your poverty is your ruin. And I've seen this, I think in America it's quite a big problem now, where a lot of people, upstanding people who do want to do the right thing, they work, try to make some money, they're under tremendous pressure, they may even have a family, and then suddenly it hits them. Yeah? They lose their job, they can't pay the mortgage, house gets repossessed, they're on the brink of being made homeless. And some of the laws over there are quite quite gruesome. If you listen from America, you will understand what I'm talking about. Here in Britain, you've got a few more protective layers where the welfare state kicks in and tries to still accommodate you if you lose your house or lose your job. In Germany, you've got also the welfare state, and it's going to buffer up to a certain point. So it's unlikely that you end up on the street unless you choose to do so. Whereas I'm aware of some other countries, it's not the case. If you are in this position, you may end up on the street, and you may end up living rough. And you've done nothing wrong. You've done what society told you to do. You work, you save your money, you pay your bills, you look after yourself, and then woof, something happens which is out of your control, and you're on the street, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, absolute tragedy. Okay, if you are listening, it's important that and you may be the poor, and you may be just a couple of meals away from starvation. It's important that you get right with God. And if you are right with God, it's important that you don't give up, that you carry on trusting God. Now, you have to bear one thing in mind is we don't own this world. We are strangers in this world. Paul was poor. He was traveling a lot, and he was just pushing the message of the gospel, and he was all over the place. Jesus said he didn't have a home to call his, a place to call his home. So if it hits you, it's not the end of the world, but I want to encourage you to put your trust in God, to look up to heaven, and to expect your next meal, your next payment, your next opportunity from above, and to put your destiny into God's hand. And I want to tell you that it will go well. Maybe not from the perspective of this world or people of this world, but from your own perspective and from God's perspective, it will go well with you. It will go well. Yeah. As a rich man's wealth is strong cities do fall, and don't put and I think this is a warning we've got in the New Testament, don't put your trust in your wealth. Still put your trust in God, and be prepared to use your wealth for the kingdom of God. To give it up if you have to. Yeah. Whatever you have, you need to receive it as a gift from God. Right, next one. I think I'm going to make this my last verse. And then we're going to, we still got a lot of verses to go through. We're going to make another session out of this. The labor of the righteous tends to life, but the fruit of the wicked tends to sin. Okay. The labor of the righteous tends to life, or feeds life, or is towards life. The fruit of the wicked tends to sin. Okay, a little bit of Hebrew poetry here. The labor of the righteous. And it's when you look around, you can see it. It's so plain and it's so obvious. But I've seen people who don't know God, who've got no relation to God, and they work. And I've got one example which is close to my heart. It's somebody I followed, whose life I've followed for many years, and he's just been working, and all he did with his money was just go to the pub, eat there, drink there, and then go home drunk to the point that he could barely walk. Then next day go to work, finish the day at work, and then go back to the pub and spend all his money there. And that was pretty much all his life. Yeah, it was just this dissipation. I don't know what word to use, but it was just, okay, let's put it in very simple terms. It was just a waste, complete and utter waste of his resources and of his money. To every day spend pretty much all the money he has earned for the day on drink and food. Food, okay, you need to feed yourself, but you don't have to to drink yourself to unconsciousness, or close to unconsciousness. how would righteous people live? Righteous people would live with a sense of responsibility. So whatever they have, they would look at what they have and try and see how they can invest it. Yeah. They wouldn't, and this was sort of a Calvinistic principle over many years where people came to Christ and they felt that they had to be very productive, earn money, save it, invest it, and have a very frugal lifestyle. Only eat what they need to eat. Don't be excessive or extra, be given to fashion or whatever. I mean, it's another. Let me talk about the female perspective as well. I know one lady, and she, again, I've known her for 20, 30 years, and she pretty much maxed out her credit cards on fashion. Yeah, so every couple of weeks she had to buy more fashion to make her feel good about herself, and then all the cupboards were full to the brim. And then when it was all done, she gave it all away, and she didn't know what was happening, But that was something she felt she had to do, and it was. I mean, she was naturally a very attractive and pretty lady, so I don't think there was any need for enhancing her, the way she felt about herself with new clothes on a almost weekly basis. Yeah. Worse still, to max out her credit cards and ruin herself financially. So she was struggling all her life, because she had this credit card debt which was just hanging over her head, and then she made, as far as I understand, she made an inheritance and she could clear most of the debt away, and maybe have learned a lesson or two to not go to that extreme. But what I was saying is, there are so many ways, where you can waste your money, and if you are God-fearing and you live your life in fear of God, and you live a modest, humble, and productive life, your labor will be towards life. You will enable yourself to live, and possibly others to live as well. You will put yourself in a position that you can give and you don't have to take. And then it goes on, and the fruit of the wicked tends to sin. Yeah. So the fruit of their labor very often is for stuff that's not good, that is destroying you even further, like alcohol, like overeating, like going into massive debt for fashion, or for things which are not really necessary for survival or for life. And with that, you're making other people rich and yourself poor, even poorer still. So it is important to have the right attitude and to look at life. Look at what you gain, the fruit of your labor, and see what you do with the fruit of your labor, how you invest it, into living a good and wholesome life, yeah, and not for self-destructiveness. And again, I see this all the time, that a lot of people embark on a road of self-destruction through excessive debt, through excessive habits, through spending money on things which are not good, yeah, gambling, things like that. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at this. Proverbs loaded to the brim, I would say. We're gonna carry on in the next talk from verse 17. We're gonna go back on instruction and receiving instructions. Pretty much how we started off today. The wise will receive commandments, and again we're gonna regurgitate on a little bit on that. So it's very, very important. Anyway, I wish you a good day. Thank you for listening to these talks and for tuning in. This is Seismic Radio. My name is Michael. You can also hear me on BPN Radio, on Crusader Radio. Crusader Radio, at the time of me talking, it might be different by the time you're listening to this. So this is March 24. You can listen to it on shortwave on 9.670 megahertz on a Sunday morning between 9 and 10, I think, in British time, 8 and 9 European time. So anyway, go for it. And thank you very much for listening. Okay, till the next talk here. Bye-bye from Michael here at Seismic Radio.